All right, here we go.
Here we go. It is it's a sunshiny, cool, brisk, gorgeous November 12th day here in Overland Park, Kansas. The year, it's 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 813.
Yep. No big deal. We're just going to sit down and talk for an hour on tape and have no idea what we're going to say. Just going to plow through it.
Man, the pressure, right, that I feel each time we go on air to be perfect.
Dude,
well,
my
it's a good
pressure
thing that
level.
You do a lot of editing.
Yeah, I don't do shit, but remember, I mean, back to the first 10, 20 of these, man, I was just like shaking in my boots. How are we going to fill this airtime? And then we said, screw it. Just say whatever, man.
Just fuck it, man. Say whatever. We did. Yeah, we sure did. Had Hayden screaming in the background. He was a baby. And yeah. And here we are. 813 later. We are still here. Still putting out, on average, 2 podcasts a week. Hope you've all had an amazing start to the week. A little bit of a slower race weekend, which they predominantly are here towards the end of the year. But we got Ironman Arizona coming up this at the end of this week, which caps off the you got Cozumel, but for the most part, most people caps off the North American Ironman racing calendar. Then you got a couple 70.3s, Florida, and I believe Indian Wells out in December. But then it's time for Thanksgiving. Yeah, Christmas. Next thing you know, it's January. Next thing you know, you're reevaluating your life, and you want to train 25 hours a week, and want to qualify for every world championship underneath the sun. And I gave someone big kudos last week because they said that they did Ironman Florida, and that obviously that race was going on the week before. It was Kona. And they said I watched all that and tracked all that, and still didn't sign up for a single race. And I was like, you know what? You get a thumbs up for that. You get a thumbs up emoji and one of those praise hands. So good for you. Because it is decision making season, which is kind of what we were going on before we went live today. You and I both get. Well, hell, we get questions about 20. We got started getting questions about 25 in fucking August. Hey, coach, I'm thinking about next year. Just wanted to put something on your radar. I'm like, just because it's on your radar doesn't mean it needs to be on my radar, because it's also probably going to change on your radar. And we got race calendars. I've already getting emails. And listen, this podcast is also not the green light to send those emails. Wait till January. Wait till we send out our 2025 planning sheet. But it is. Everyone's thinking about it. I've thought about it, and I think everyone has. Right? It's human nature. We all do it. And then obviously, like, if you have an email address that Ironman's got a hold of, then they always kind of chirp in there every what seems like 3 or 4 days. Because people do. People like, most people, not all, they like having a race on the calendar. Right? It keeps them motivated. It gives them a why. It gives them a goal. And I think that's I totally agree. I think that's a great thing to have. I think it does kind of increase your level of accountability and motivation in some areas. But we were talking before we went live about some of the writing you've been doing and how you've been talking. Where were you last year? And I think we probably had this discussion this time of year every year. We were probably having this podcast this time last year about what we want to do next year, right? What changes in training. I set up an athlete call before this and about, changes in training and things you want to do. And I always think it's a great exercise as happy, because listen, I generally think this time of year, everyone is a little bit happier. Right, you're not training as much, so you're not bogged down. You're not as overly, you're not as fatigued. You're not as stressed. You're not, you don't have a countdown clock going and all this extra pressure and all these things you have to kind of pay attention to. You got the holidays coming up. Things are a little more flexible. People, and the weather's fantastic. People just generally seem in like a little bit better of a mood, and so you're more optimistic because life is cleaner, right? Life is easier, and we've talked about that a lot in the past about trying not to make decisions that add things to your life when life is easy, but instead thinking about how your life is at its busiest and if you have any room to add anything to that. And I think that's where people get into a trap, is they don't look back on the decisions or the goals or the whatever you want to say, the hopes and dreams and the increased hours and the new training they want to do for next year and what kind of races they want to do. They don't look back at what they were feeling and how they were feeling this time last year, and then either the mistakes that were made after that, or maybe even the failures, the shortcomings, or the additional stress. Like I just don't think I don't think we learn enough through the cycle of each season about. We always look for ways to get better with training, but I think most people don't get into enough of a habit to looking into how did I set myself up for failure last year. Not that everyone does, but I think everyone would probably agree. Like there's probably a lot of things that we all do each year that don't necessarily set ourselves up for success. And so I thought, like you mentioned, like we can go through some of those. It's just some of those exercises. And I told you before we went live, I'll give mine example. As I was thinking about this just the other day, is I started running again pretty consistently a little over 8 weeks ago. I just put in my first 40-mile run week in a while, and I hadn't thought that deeply about it till you mentioned it before before we went live. Is about making poor decisions expecting to have more motivation and increased hours based on current levels of hours and current levels of motivation. And I do this every year, and I think to be honest, I've done it to myself the last probably 2 to 3 years, as I've as you both you and I, and I'm always like admiring how you still find the time and the effort and energy to do these fulls at the end of the year, and I haven't. My like lighting of the fire always starts around this time of year. I love running in October, November. I remember going to bed last night and I was checking the weather and I was like, oh, sweet, 39 degrees. Like I just something about it. I love running in the cold, and it's dark outside. There's not a single person out, and I feel like just a great way to start my day. And it's just very, very, very easy to get in, and I just love how refreshing it is. But what happens is I start to see like it fits great in my schedule. I'm done before the workday starts. I'm done before anybody else in my house wakes up. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fitness. I'm seeing some increase in my health, and I may be dropping a few pounds, and I'm staying committed, but I'm also my training peaks is green. I'm screaming success over here. And then as the winter gets going, I'm like, oh, maybe I take this one level of success in one specific sport, and then I get this temptation, like I think we all do. And as a person who's done a lot of triathlons, like you get this, oh man, if I got this fitness, and maybe I can do that. Maybe I can do early season full. Maybe I can do a 70.3. And then I skip from that, and then like, oh, if I can do something, maybe I can do so 4:30 for the first time ever. And I got that A race later in the year. It's Nice next year, and I qualify for Kona in like the next year, November. So I go from committing to doing like 6 to 7 hours of running a week that fits into my schedule, to jumping into 2 other things. Like for me, 2 other sports that don't really fit into my schedule. Long rides don't fit, especially like right now during hockey season. We're super busy. We're traveling. It's all over the place. And then I don't have the time or the desire to hop on my bike this time of year and then stare and then still get, emails and text messages and whatever. But it's just funny to me how, again, like having been in this sport for forever, I'm willing to make this leap from being a part of a routine that fits seamlessly into my life, that I'm successful at day in and day out, which one makes me fitter, right? I've seen a lot of fitness increase. I'm running really well. I'm feeling healthier. I'm also feeling more positive about the direction I'm going with my fitness. I feel encouraged. I'm proud of myself. I feel like you have this level of pride in the fact that you're able to adhere to a schedule. It's like checking all these positive boxes. And then my tendency, and I think this is a little tendency for a lot of athletes, is to think, oh, well, what about this? And then I you take this display of a week, and then I go and try to find, and then I go from things kind of falling into my week organically to now I'm trying to look at a week where I've got to force in a swim and a ride. And I find this myself as a coach, and also if I'm being not optimistic, if I'm being objective and like how to coach myself, if you have to, and you do this too as a coach, like if you look at someone's week, then it takes you longer than honestly 10, 15, 20 seconds to figure out where something might fit. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. That extra ride or that extra swim or that extra run or that extra 45 minutes at the end of a ride or a double run or a brick or a strength training session. If you have to look that hard at your week to find a slot to put something in, it probably doesn't fit. And then you go from being fluid with your week and letting it just come to you and obviously having some structure to forcing a week. And that, to me, that immediately adds stress. And I think that's something that we just don't do enough when we look at our own schedules, or if you're a self-coach athlete and you're trying to force feed your own training, or you really know that probably Olympics and 70.3s are probably in your wheelhouse right now, and yet you're trying to force doing 2 fulls this next year just because. I think it's a great exercise, and hell, it's been a great exercise for me already. I've done it in the last 10 minutes that I've been talking. Mm-hmm. It was something I never really recognized or kind of like thought through until you brought it up before we went live. But I think it's a great discussion, and I think it's something we don't do enough in appreciating the balance, even though some people would say there's no such thing as balance in life. But the balance isn't the right word. Harmony. That sometimes I feel like we lose sight of the harmony that we now have with life and training and how they complement each other. And then we get distracted or we're just naive about what doing more and how that would impact their current harmony we have in our life, and to see gains and just to feel good about our abilities to complete a goal or a training cycle or even just a training week.
Yeah. I mean, what years you were talking there, I was thinking to myself, I was like, I wonder sometimes if most of us can simply accept feeling good and feeling great. Because like you said, you get to run, you're running, that's a lot of running that you're doing. And then you're like, well, I feel good, man. I should add more to this just to wear me out or something like that. And I thought about it just yesterday. I do some simple incline treadmill work. I've been doing some easy biking, all this, and I have a little rotation that I've been doing, and I felt really good afterwards. My first thought was, I should do another one of these tonight.
I should do another.
I was like, wait a minute, dude. And then, then you kind of deal with life, and you're kind of, I think maybe an anomaly at this time of year with feeling good and loving everything, because everybody's like, oh, it's dark at 4:30, it sucks, and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of weird pressures like that, or stressors, or whatever you want to call them at this time of year too. But I don't know, man. It's sort of like, or if you put in a week and somebody nails it, it's like, let's up it. I'm going now. It's like, all right, we'll hammer it now. And then you start getting that inconsistent thing going. But I do think, as a coach, I'm always talking to athletes about, let's just find a groove right now, man. Because, we've been coaching a long time. In November, December, if you can stay in the game, you're winning, usually, And I always say, too, is, if I give you, let's say, an hour and 12-minute training ride or something, and you want to spin it out to 1:30, go for it, Or like it goes back to my idea of yellow for the win, or if you don't have it, just go a little shorter, whatever the case may be. But let's just kind of be fluid with it and not, try to always bite off more than we can chew just because we feel good today. It is sort of like that thing about signing up for a race. You feel great right now. That sounds awesome. And then you sign up, and then 3 days later, you're like, shit, now I got to do that, because it's kind of fluid, And I just think there's some real beauty in this idea of handling each day or attacking each day in a way that makes you feel good, especially now, because as that spring breaks, it seems like you just get a little more juice, and you kind of, that's, if you're right where, train like you need to train so you can train like you need to train, or whatever the hell that is. And if you get into the spring and you've been pretty consistent all the way through, no matter what that is, it isn't a failure if you can't hit a workout here and there or finish one. I think it's important to be on top of that and understand where you're at. And, I said it. Yeah, I was like, my concept was, where were you 1 year ago today? And are you doing the same? Are we making the same decisions that seemingly don't really work, or at least we weren't happy with, or something like that? Because now is that great time. I think you said it a few podcasts ago, but it's a time to really work on things without the pressure. And it's a really perfect way to think about it, because a lot of times for me, it's like I get done with Ironman and I'm kind of burned on it, and but I want to keep doing stuff. So I've been really on this thing right now because I've been doing these 10 years in a row or whatever, 11 years. And it takes its toll. I just turned 61 or something. And I'm really, really interested in getting kind of more back to baseline. So whatever that means to you, or, whatever that means to me, it might be different, but I just kind of want to feel that general solid energy and sort of desire to do things. So, if they always seem like a mammoth task, or it starts seeming like a really something that you got to force yourself to do, that it's definitely not where I want to be. So I'm kind of, playing a little bit of fluid and flexible right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, things, I think, time, you see it all the time, but I got to stretch more. I got to do this more. I got to PT more, this and that. If you that's sort of what I've been trying to do, is work that shit into my daily, and slowly kind of get to the point where my muscles aren't always tight and sore. They're going to be tight and sore because we're doing a lot of shit. But if you can it's one of those gray area things, right? Where you don't really notice it until you notice it, and then you always notice it. It's sort of like it's maintenance, it's maintenance. Your chain's in a good shape, but if you don't take care of it, then eventually it'll be creaky. It'll still work, but it'll just be harder and harder, and then you might ruin the chain. So it's just sort of staying ahead of the maintenance game a little bit right now.
Yeah. And as we've continued to talk through this, I think about again, because to me, it all comes down to, it's like this a really deadly combination of ego and distraction. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we even talked about that a little bit before we went live today on some other topics we were talking about. Is that you have because I am thinking now is what? I mean, I love racing triathlon, and I've done a sprint the last 2 years and done really well. And the year before that, it is 70.3 and it was fine. But I'm like, man, and I think for me, this time of year, I love running. I fell in love with it the first time we moved to Kansas. It's just how alive it makes you feel, because I feel like running in the winter, at least for me, running in the winter, I feel like I'm taking energy and oxygen from the planet and the air. It makes me feel really, really good but then August, I feel like the planet is trying to kill me. And so I don't have that typical love relationship with running. And then as I think about the undulating, consistent levels of consistency, and then but you're the same way in our profession, is that this is also the slowest time of year as a coach, right? The races are pretty much done. People are kind of checked out or relaxed. They don't need as much. They're not asking about nutrition and fueling and wheels and helmets and races and tapering and peaking and panic attacks and all those kind of things. It's a little more chill, so you have a little more bandwidth. But I'm thinking what if the last I wouldn't consider myself a natural runner by any stretch, but I enjoyed a run and I'm fairly decent. And I'm like, man, what if the last 2 or 3 years I hadn't gotten distracted with where I was with running, and then how I just was trying to force feed long distance triathlon back into my life? I wonder where I would be. And are those bad things? No, it didn't really negatively impact my life, but did it? You do kind of go back, like you said, go back to last spring and look where you were, and it's look where you could have been, and look where you might have been, and then look where you went. had you not made, or when you did make, these 1, 2, and 3 decisions. And it's like, man, like I wonder what my, head out the door, this morning, and my pace is this, but if I had just kept running and made that my focus, and you're running and strength training from all year last year and didn't get distracted with cycling and swimming and trying to do this and then get unmotivated because I couldn't do it, this pace would probably be, a minute faster, a whole minute faster. And you're like, man, like, what am I, again, like these aren't like life altering decisions here, but when you think about being really, really being able to be your best at something, or just be really good at a few things or some things, or then go from being great to good to terrible or unmotivated and then trying to be great again, like what that does to your confidence level. And again, like, and that's just part of a distraction, is because I think the more distracted we get from being present, the more we are listening to our ego and like, oh yeah, you can. And again, this isn't ego about being fast. This is ego about being able to do more. Because I think within all of us, I mean, if you have a cell phone, welcome to the club, but we're all addicts. And I think like the one more or the extra, or I can fit in, there's always, and sometimes it's not ego, sometimes it's insecurity. You can want more hours and think that you need more hours. And I mean, we've both heard this, before, is, from, hey, I saw you lower my hours. Did I do something wrong? Can I not handle? I'm like, no, like it's just, that's part of the journey. Like it doesn't mean there's anything fundamentally wrong with you. But that's like, again, sometimes on ego, sometimes it's lack of self-esteem or negative self-talk, or there's just all these things that come into play with our decision-making that, a lot of times the simplest thing is, it is the answer. It is right there in front of you. It really is that simple, but we have this desire, and I do think an addiction to trying to make things more complicated, because then it matters more and I can do more and it'll be more. But then a lot of times that more never comes to fruition and you never really complete anything. But then most people are more swept up in the thought, in the hope, in the illusion that they will in fact complete whatever it is, that's enough to get them by. And I've seen this with athletes too, is that there's only so much common sense you can talk into an athlete when they're what they want to do or not do based on their life and their training. Is you can see them go in this really up and down emotional and mental state where you can tell like they are delusional with where they are and what they're going to be capable of doing in the long run. But that hyped up feeling on false hope and fake adrenaline and, hopes and dreams, like that's like a drug, and it gets them through a few weeks. And then when reality sets in and they come crashing down, it is the polar opposite. It's, I can't do this. I'll never be good. And like, no, it's none of that. We just need to be realistic. Like, that's it. And it really is that simple. Let's be realistic with hours. Let's be realistic with how good we can get this year. And then let's act upon it. And if you can look at it and you think, I can do way more than this, then it's probably perfect. Because it's perfect for your body, but your mind is telling you need more, that you have to have more to fulfill whatever it is, whatever lack of ability you think you have in you. But you see more athletes do more harm than good with their yo-yoing in reality and honestly what's just good for them, right? You work 60 hours a week. You are trying to do, it's like, let's not try to do 3 Ironman this year, dude. That's like, we can check that box, and I appreciate that, your willingness to fit it in, but not sure from like a longevity standpoint that's going to fly, and you're going to still want to be doing this. Because I think we lose sight again, like we get so focused on what we're doing this year that we don't fully grasp and appreciate the impact that it might have on us mentally, emotionally, and physically for the next 5 years or for the next decade. And it's all about, what do I need now? Not how can I fix this to make it a long-term success. And I think that's I think that's probably an evolving story and project for all of us. I mean, myself included, is to not get distracted again by things that we once were. Because I do think I know it's been one of my problems, that you have this like little, I think once you have a dream or a goal or a fantasy or whatever, I don't know that it ever really leaves you, even if the time has passed to complete whatever it is. So I think when those kind of bubble up, I think that's normal. Like for a guy who's been in the sport for over 20 years to like want to qualify for Kona, I don't think that's ever going to go away. Is the realistic nature of it, is it gone? Yeah, it's gone right now. But it doesn't mean that I have my priorities in the wrong order if it bubbles up from time to time. Because I think we all have those, right? Opportunities that, you missed, or things that were great that are no longer there, or things that you didn't do that you really wish you could. I think that's normal, right? It's like, oh, I loved that job, and you're not there anymore. It doesn't mean you want that job again. It just means that you had a great experience. It was there. Or remember we want to do this and never did. Like, I think that's normal. But I think where we get caught up is like we act upon those even when 3 + 3 = 47 and not 9, 3 + 3 = 6. Like we get caught up in that, and that's when we make decisions, and we get so far down that hole in that trajectory that we have a hard time turning around. And it's great to revitalize goals, or to reinvent what they might look like, or what measurements of success you're going to use to feel good about yourself this year. Because I do think that's also a huge problem with triathletes, is they set these enormous expectations that require an enormous amount of work that they probably don't have the physical or time capacity to even do. And then when they fail at them, it's back to the same vicious cycle again. And I think that's like when you look at endurance sports and the fact that we do this as a hobby, that, what we do should be to make ourselves feel more confident, to feel better about ourselves, not just healthy, but also like, look, we can follow through with things. Look, we can adhere to a schedule. Look, we can set a good example, like all these things. But then the more you tend to stack, the more pressure you feel, the more expectations you feel. And that is, and that causes problems, and ultimately makes us more likely to, I think, make poor decisions, because those poor decisions are never remedied the next day. Like if you go out and you sign up for a race, and the immediate thought even next day is, that was a bad idea. You don't just stop course and eat the loss or try to defer. You signed up, so you're like, fuck, I gotta try to fit this in. And you're like, for what? And I think we talked about this before, is like, if, let's say you drop 900 on a race, let's say you sign up for an Ironman that you had no business signing up for, or a 7.3, whatever dollar amount it is. And within a week, you're like, this was not a good idea. Like I got swept up, I made a bad decision. That's on me. Well, one, by just simply not going, you're not going to spend 200% plus what you just spent, right, on travel and accommodations and food and probably extra gear you don't need and whatever. But if I was like, hey man, for the next 6 months, I'm going to fit everything into your life, and it's going to be really chill, and I'm going to, and you're going to feel less stressed and be more healthy, and it's going to cost you, $1,000. You're like, I'm in. Where do I sign up? Sounds great. But on the other side, it's like, hey, what can I sign up for that's going to make me more stressed, more unsure, raise my level of expectations beyond what's realistically possible and doable? And then here we are. And you're like, wait, but, and this is for like the people that we do this as like a hobby. And because sometimes you look at like these professional athletes who like, it's as their livelihood, and they've got billions of people probably bashing them on social media and questioning everything they do. And like, you see them out there, not all the time, but they're out there like, smiling and like having a good time. Yeah, they lose, they're cool, but it's like a lot of times they probably take it a lot less seriously in that specific way than age group athletes do. But that's why it's like we're looking for something. We're just not sure what we're looking for. Then we open the wrong door when we walk in, even though we know we should turn immediately around and not do it. And that's just, I think it's I don't even know if it's a skill. I just think it's probably a learned behavior that we all have to probably work on to a degree, and is is changing course, making a U-turn, or being okay with where we are and being really good at it and how it fits versus getting so swept up in, going longer, doing more, having to do this, more hours. It doesn't always add up that easy. And a lot of times it adds up to something that you really aren't, a fan of.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think you got to pick your spots. I was looking at the Facebook group the other day, and somebody posted they were talking about that they think their bike is their weak spot. I think the question was, how do I get better on the bike or whatever? And I noticed the first few people I saw in there said, bike more, bike more. And I was like, yeah. And of course, then it got into, trainer.
It's easy for you to say, just add 10 more hours to your week, dude. You got this.
Yeah. But it's like you with the running right now, you're doing a lot more running. And, I just think about I like to keep things simple, right? So to me, this is triathlon, especially long course stuff. To me, repetition is king. And the reason I say that is because, there's kind of a hierarchy in triathlon. It's most of us in our childhood or youth or rest of our lives, swimming is the least thing we've done. And then biking is probably second least. And most of us grew up kind of running around as kids, and it just sort of becomes a natural thing, I think. And there's something very interesting in there to me. It's like this weekend, my buddy was up and we were playing wiffle ball against his kids. And when we play wiffle ball, we tape the ball up and we throw it hard. And it's, kind of like fast pitch, like baseball. And I hadn't swung a bat forever, but I got in there and I actually kind of felt natural. And I had some, I got a few hits right away. And I was like, I hadn't swung in 20 years. So to me, that's the analogy that we use. It's sort of like the chassis versus the engine, right? It's almost like my engine's still there for swinging a bat, but I don't have the chassis. And when I think about biking, it's the same way. I grew up doing a lot of mountain biking. So I get out there and I'm fairly natural and I feel good with it. I just don't ever ride enough to be able to sustain it. It's sort of like my chassis never gets built like it should. And I just think that, we have to kind of look at we're adults, right? Like picking up a sport late in life that, maybe you didn't have the background. A lot of us don't have the swim background, for example. It's like you can get in the water and just swim fairly, normal. You're probably just not, you don't have the lungs for it maybe all the time, or you're not quite ready to go long distance, but it's just sort of a natural function. And I think the only way you get better at that shit is just by doing it a lot. So, for example, if you do want to get better on the bike, I don't think you need to be doing anything crazy right now. You just need to be riding a lot. I mean, the more familiar you are and more comfort, I've talked about it before, but we talk about feel for the water, how quickly you use it or lose it. And I think the same goes with the bike sometimes, especially if you didn't grow up and it doesn't feel natural. I have a few athletes who they ride their bike to work most of the year. That's an extra 30, 40 minutes a day, just kind of chilling and these guys are getting better on the bike. And yeah, you might not have tons of hours, but like I said, it's just getting on that thing a little more frequently, even if it's just popping on while you're watching a show or whatever the case may be. I just think repetition is so important. And especially if we don't have the background, it's kind of like, when I'm swimming a lot, I kind of start pulling it together. But if I went out there right now, I'd be a mess. It's just, it isn't instinctual. And when you do it a lot and you have it sort of in your DNA, I think it just comes more natural. It's just, you have to marry the chassis to the engine a little bit better and be, your aerobic capacity. That's why I'm so big on aerobic capacity and that zone 2 stuff is that I mean, ultimately, that's where your bread is buttered in this sport. And you may have all the talent in the world, but if you can't, it's like running. I just see people all the time that have been runners for a long time. They just go and they start running, and they may not, have everything that they wish they had, but they're still pretty good at it. I've seen dudes just not run for weeks or months and just jump in a half marathon and just kind of knock it out or whatever. And I think that there's something to be said for how many times they've done that in their lives. So if you're if you're an adult onset swimmer like me, you probably just need to swim a shit ton more. Or same with the bike. If you're uncomfortable on the bike, that's not a good sign. You need to be riding a lot.
Right. And,
if you really want to make a difference, that's why I'm just bringing it up, because it's this time of year. Now, like you said, working on shit without pressure.
Right. Yeah. And I think and if you look at the best of like the best and everything, like they do what they do because they love to do what they do. And they don't always have a structured or a focused everything all the time. But when they go out and have fun, it sure as hell is a lot more fun because of the fitness they do have for being structured when they were. And then, but you have to have that. Yeah, I mean, yes, more is more, and that's generally a good thing up to a point. But you just have to do it for a long period of time. And like when you look at, that's something that like every pro athlete would tell you in any sport is, I can tell you what I do right now to get fit. But for you, it's irrelevant because I've been doing this for decades. I've been waking up and riding my bike since I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more consistently than you were last year, right? As an age group athlete. But and everyone would tell you, it's like you just got to do more. You got to do more. You got to either find time or just. To me, it's either like you got to pick one. Find more time in your 24-hour day or be more patient. Take a pick. And yes, there's other things you can do by dialing in, your training zones and being more specific and finding like the perfect minimal effective dose. But yeah, I mean, more is still more for a lot of people, but it's the easy more that goes a long way. But again, like where are you going to find more? For most people, it's not do more, it's just do it more frequently. Don't try to go out and bang out a 4-hour ride on a Saturday, in December, and then the rest of the week you don't do much. So
right.
Do like an hour and a half, 5 days a week. Right. Same thing with running, like run 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week, include a long run, way better off than trying to go out and crush a 2.5-hour descending run on a Sunday. Like just find ways to sneak it in. And because that also fits, not for everyone, but it also fits way more into people's lives than the latter. Right. It's finding 3-hour chunks of time that make sense and that are uninterrupted and that are truly focused. Like you're not going to have that. And that's what you have to have, in a lot of ways. But if you don't, then stop trying to make, and I know a lot, and I've had a few people do this before during the week, is like, would have them run 3 times a day. They couldn't fit in like a midweek long run, so we'd do 30-minute morning, 30-minute lunch, 30-minute in the evening. Because asking them to put together an hour, 15 hour and a half couldn't make it happen. So they did more frequently, and it always worked out well. Same thing with split run. It's about frequency again, but I think people see do more. They think do it all at once. But most people would tell you like to do, going back to when you talked about you were in the best, probably swim shape of your life. You weren't hammering out 3 days a week and 5K. You went to the pool for like 3 weeks straight, knocked out 1,000 to 2,000 yards, maybe a little bit more here, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
It's that repetitive nature, and doing those, like doing the amount of yardage you did in that 3 weeks is probably twice as much, if not 3 times as more as it would have been had you gone and tried out to do a week of 3,500 on a Monday and 4,000 on a Wednesday, and then you'd be fried, and then you're more likely to hate it too. Mm-hmm. But repetitive, and again, like I think when we hear more, everyone hears different things. And I think that's another huge piece of trying to figure out, because you just got to do more. They think like more time or volume. It could be just like doing what you already do now better. Like before you add, you try to find more minutes and hours to your plate. If you're riding your bike 6 hours a week, make sure you're really riding your bike 6 hours a week. You need to ride it. Because if you're not, you're just going further in the wrong direction and wasting more time. No one wants to do that. It's very similar to swimming. Slow down, do some 25s and 50s, make sure your stroke is correct, try to get better form. Don't just swim 2,500 yards straight and expect to get better, because all you're doing is implementing the your terrible stroke permanently. Slow down. Like, to me, that's doing more. Let's do more swimming. Oh, I don't have time to up it from 3 times a week to, 5 times a week, or I don't have time to double my yard. Okay, well then just do more with the time that you have. Oh, well, so you need to go harder. No, just get more out of it. Like, be more purposeful with it. Be more specific with it. Focus on the techniques you need to focus on. Focus on the sets you need to focus on. Take your time with it. If you got an hour and a half of riding and you're noodling around for the first hour, not paying attention on your cadence and on your heart rate zones or power, whatever it is, and you're just kind of fucking around on Netflix watching shows and mindlessly spinning your legs. Well, then you can probably get by with an hour total of training, 5 minutes warm up, 5 minutes cool down, give you 50 minutes of focus, constant cadence at high zone 2 aerobic threshold. There's more. But it's actually less time. Same thing with running, right? There's just so much we can do when we talk about doing more. For whatever reason, we talk about, just it's always about adding volume or intensity or responsibility. It doesn't have to be that way. It could just do more with your time. Be more efficient with it. Be more dialed in, because that could very well just be the problem. Go get a bike fit. That could be a huge problem, right? Just there's so many things we can do, and but frequency is almost always going to be king.
I really like that, man. I mean, it makes so much more sense to me. Like, at this time of the year, I'm really struggle to get on the bike, and I just talked about how I need more bike base and chassis work and aerobic work and stuff like that. So I just get on there for like 35, 40 minutes, and I'm doing exactly what you're saying. To me, it's enough, but if I can keep that consistent from now and through, February or something, I'll be, way ahead of the game. But not only that, I can already tell that, that 35, 40 minutes is turning into, let's go for 50, with that high zone 2 or that good cadence, and really riding the bike, not just, loose gear, spin, but really kind of having that just a little bit of a uncomfortable tension on it, but not too bad, and that's just, I really think that's, frankly, because if I was trying to do crazy shit, I wouldn't be doing it. Like you're saying, yeah, you can go out and maybe one day feel, I'm going to go ride for 4 hours. And then you just, it brings back all those old feelings that kind of kept you away from the bike in the first place. So it's really about creating a good relationship with everything you're running. And that's why I do a lot of walk running now, I have been for a long time, because that's the way I get moving. And when I am doing that, I really am the run sections of what I do. I'm really on that turnover. I'm on that form. I'm thinking about where my foot plant, I'm not just drudging along for, an hour and a half and the whole thing's going to shit at an hour or whatever, but I'm trying to stay on top of it and really work that form and make it feel easier, 45-minute treadmill yesterday, inclines, up and downs with some walk run in there. You get off, you feel great, and you got a lot accomplished, and it doesn't, beat me up. So I just,
the more is better. Don't you want to feel beat up? Well, it's like that. It's just, isn't it weird? Like, like the amount of like the different like definitions, and because that's also I think like an interesting thing for everyone is like people's different interpretations of what is written or what is said, right? Is like, do more or go harder. It's like, what does that mean? Like that's like that means different things to everybody. And there's, just a certain amount of, I think more people, and I think it's what you were saying here a minute ago, is like more people would probably show greater improvement by constant, consistent, dedicated restraint than they would impulsive overreaching. And that, in most of the time with most athletes, you see overreaching every week, 2, 3, 4 times a week. And that, like, I was just before we went on the podcast, I had a conversation with an athlete based on California. It was our first year working together. Started out the year really, really like she came to me with some major foot problems, so we didn't run for a while. Anyway, had a end of the year, went incredible, had an awesome 70.3, got on the podium, and qualified for Worlds. And then I said, hey, kind of like we're into the season. It's been a long year. Right? It's been 8 months of just constant training and focusing on this one race. Because when you only have one race, it's a lot of pressure to do it right, taper right, peak right, race correctly. Especially in our first year working together. And then she was like, yeah, I think I need a little more flexibility. And I want to just kind of like relax for a bit, so put some stuff in there, but I'm going to kind of just, do what I want. I'm like, totally get it. Like, we all need that. But like the last few weeks, like she's been like digging herself a hole by doing too much. And so on our call, I was like, yeah, if you look back, you've done more volume in the last 4 weeks than you did in the 4 weeks before the 70.3. She was just like, going on ride after ride after ride, 100-mile ride, 4-hour paddle boarding, sailing. It's just like doing it all, having a great time, living your best life. I love it. I get it. But I was like, this isn't resting. Like there's more to a point. It's way too much. I was like, you need to do less with more structure and then really unload. Because honestly, right now, what we need to do is unload from your unload. Like your planned unload, you did more. Like you're doing like 16, 17, 18 hours all no running, just all riding and all swimming. But still, like to a point, more is no longer more is actually less. So now we're having to like dial things way back. But that's, again, like there's just so much, so many races and expectations and temptations and friends that are racing, like, that are like grabbing at you. Like you really need like some kind of an objective voice that's like, hey, listen, that's just a really bad idea. Or let's just rein it down. Or just go out for 10 minutes instead of 30. Or go out for 30 instead of 60. Or just skip it today. Or maybe try a ride instead of a run, right? Or flip things around. Like, you got to kind of go back and forth to keep that. Because to me, that, we talk about more, that is doing more, getting more out of your time, because the chances are is you're going to do it more for longer. And if you can do it more for longer, again, not just more this week, but if you look at your yearly and your annual average hours, if it's increased even like 30 minutes a week, that's 100 hours, over 100 hours more of training. And excuse me, over like, whatever, almost close to 50 hours of training. That's a lot of training, just 30 extra minutes a week, 2 hours a month. I mean, that's a 24 hour. I mean, that's a lot of training just for 30 minutes. But people want to jump up like 3. I want to do three extra hours each week. Oh my God, now we're doing like 12. Now we're talking like, now we're getting close to 150 hours. That's a lot. And so again, like just more is, it's such a general term, but there's a lot more you can do with probably the time that you currently have than to adding more to time you don't have. Yeah. My math has been horrific today, by the way.
I was trying to add that up.
Last week I'm over here giving myself a pound on the back for being parent of the year, teaching my kid multiplication. Today I can't even fucking do 2 + 2.
Yeah. I'll take your word for it, man. It's like
life comes at you fast, man.
Yeah. But it's true, man. There's a lot of times during the day, I think, when, I've always been a habitual push-up guy. Like, I'll just drop and do 20 push-ups, randomly throughout the day. And to me, that's just, I don't need like a specific workout for that. It's just sort of a habit. I think there's little things, whether they can be rolling or stretching. It's just stuff like when you're sitting around watching TV and eating chips, get down on the roller or something. Those kind of things can fit in naturally and give you that extra time that you're talking about, and just be beautiful supplements to everything without even, having to really write it down. It's just sort of something you do, like drink coffee, you just do push-ups.
Just do some push-ups and work on your math, people.
And or do your core. That'd be a great one, actually.
That's right. Do your core. Yeah. While you're working on your math. But no, I mean, again, go back, and before, when you've got all this extra free time because you're not training as much, right? And you feel like, oh, I got all this time. Like, you really don't, and honestly, a great exercise would be go back into your peak block of the year and read through your comments. Tired, fatigued. I didn't have time for this. I didn't have time for this. I had to cut this short. I didn't have time for this. I had to move this around. This came up. I'm not feeling it. Like, do you want those again? Do you want those feelings again? And yes, some of that is par for the course, right? In your final build, you're going to feel like shit. You're not going to want to, you're going to wait for, that's extracting the most out of a body and out of a person as you have to do in order to get the most out of them on race day. That's some of it. But also, like, again, read through those, like, yeah, maybe that didn't work. That's why I get sometimes a little cranky with athletes when they go and delete the workouts that they don't do. I'm like, stop doing that. I want to see all green week. Like, no one cares about your green week. I want to see what we had planned, and then I can see what actually fit. So next time you can have a green week and it'll just be set from the beginning. So stop deleting things. But people just want to see that they did everything, when in reality, you didn't. You did like 60% of what was supposed to be done. Or your Monday through Friday was perfect, everything accomplished, but oh, look, on Saturday, Sunday, there's 19 workouts stacked on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave them. It's okay to miss. It's not like a character flaw. We need to find out the best rhythm and the best structure for your week. Cause then guess what? I promise you will love not moving workouts. I promise you will love feeling set up for success. I promise you will love feeling like you can do everything and not be like super stressed that it might not happen. What you won't love is feeling inadequate and incompetent and like you're failing yourself or your coach by having to move 7 workouts from Monday through Friday to Saturday, Sunday, when we all both know that ain't happening. You're not doing 70.3s on Sunday, Jeff. You just ain't doing it. It's not happening. Okay? You're going to do one run, and you're going to cut it short and say, hey, went tailgating last night, couldn't make my run on Sunday, but, I got in what I could. That's fine. Just stop moving stuff all the way over. Bag it, and then it's a lot easier for yourself, a self-coach athlete or a coach, to look back and see, all right, this didn't fit, this didn't work. So now how can we do more with the week that we have? The last few weeks you've missed 3 sessions on average, and we've gotten in 9 hours. Okay, so what I know is you've got about 9 hours a week of either bandwidth or life, extra time. You've got we got this. So let me give you the best 9 hours I can get based on 9 hours, not let me give you 12 hours and you only do 75% of it. It's okay. And that's how you set people up for success, right? Not just, again, not doing a triple anvil on Saturday and a 10K swim on Sunday. It ain't happening. It ain't happening.
Triple anvil.
And I think my math was correct in my percentage there. So I'm rallying at the end of the podcast today. A little negative split.
Yeah.
Take my word for it.
All right, that counts. I think that's it, man.
Yeah, I think that is it. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community, especially this time of year. If you're looking to have a better, more efficient, fluid, and successful 2025, check out our coaching tab. Find the coach that's right for you, or you can just have us pair you up with the one that we think is best. And as always, Mike's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. If you need anything from me, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. Have an awesome Tuesday.
What is today? Tuesday? Yeah. We've been doing the Wednesday so much, I thought it was. I'm like, man, it's hump day. But it's not. We're still stuck on Tuesday.
All right, bud. See you later.
See you, man.